Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first Mailbag episode of the new year. So, first off, Rob and I would just like to thank you for your questions. We really appreciate it. We had some fun ones come in. So, let's not waste any more time. Rob, what is yeah.
All right, our friend Chris asked, as award season is upon us, if we were appointed co-mayors of Hollywood, what
Hmm.
changes would we make to improve the Oscars?
Okay. So, the first one is I would go back to five Best Picture nominees
Yeah,
because I think 10 makes the category less meaningful than even actors and directors.
it's a little
And
bit.
yeah, it feels like there's always five real nominees and five fake nominees.
Yeah,
So I get why they did it. It was to like, because of The Dark Knight and Wally not getting in 2008, they were like, let's have spots for commercial successes. But the best is the best. And
and it's never really, and just being like, now that I've gone through a couple cycles of voting and critics groups and stuff, you know what's gonna, like, you know where the buzz is, you know what's
right.
gonna win, and the 10 nominees is a little, I think it's a little facetious. I agree with you. I think it's kind of like, let's have them on the list so we can say they're on the list.
It
uh,
also drives me crazy that there will be years where, and I know how this is just how the voting sorts itself out, but it'll be like nominated for Best Picture and like one other nomination, and I'm
right.
like, you can't be nominated for two things and be nominated, and one of them is Best Picture, or you can't win two Oscars and one of them is Best Picture, while like some other movie wins six and loses Best Picture. It's just weird. The ones that are always the most interesting for me are where it's nominated for like 12 Oscars and wins zero.
Yeah.
That's the one. Those are the ones that always fascinate me. Um, Rob, did you have any other suggestions? I had a few more.
Yeah, I mean, I would add a stunt category, obviously. I mean, I feel like that's been in the wind for a long time. I know there's some issues because stunt performers, I know there's an award for them that they also give to each other, I think. I'm not 100% sure.
SAG has one. Yeah.
Say it again.
Screen Actors Guild has one.
Screen Actors Guild has one, right? There we go. But I would love to see that stunt work and, that kind of special effects work
Yeah.
recognized by the Oscars.
This is the smallest one. Not every year do they have the 15-second Oscar clip for
Mhm.
actors, and I want to see like the Oscar bait moment for every one of them because it's just part of the ceremonial thing. But some years they skip over it, and I find it kind of underwhelming when they do that. I would also say less making fun of the nominees, be more respectful.
Yeah.
If it's a night to celebrate the movies in Hollywood, it shouldn't be a roast,
Yeah.
um, because it always feels like they hate themselves. So it's like, well, why should we get excited about it? And it
Right.
didn't used to be that way. Like you can still make fun of people, but it's just like I feel like the point now is to like you almost don't want to get nominated because you know that you're just going to get like dragged through the dirt.
Yeah, exactly.
If they ever wanted to bring back viewers for like or attention for the Academy, release a TV special, like a one-time thing that's 3 hours long, and you go through, and then afterwards you come out with like a press release or a thing on the Oscar site that has the full list. Show us how things did in past years. Like,
Mm.
did what was number two in the best picture
Oh,
voting?
okay. I see what you're
What
saying.
was number two in the best actor voting? Stuff
Right.
like that, like historical stuff, because I would find that really fascinating, even if it's in a book or something. I mean, like that would be amazing. Okay, our next question comes from Louis. Um, he says, I'll ask the pervy question. Which movies are so insanely hot that the mere act of watching them raises your body temperature to such a degree that you cause the ice and snow around you to melt, assuming that you live in a city with an icy hellscape and not a tropical wonderland like I do? So I love that little
Thank you,
bit.
Louis.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I'll go first. So it is definitely an effort to not just name the movies that have, not just the ones that are the most titillating, I'll say, or that have the. For me, I was thinking of movies that have um, kind of just the horniest vibe to them. There's just an energy to them, and not necessarily in a sexual way. So I was thinking like something like Ocean's 11, which is like incredibly. it's horny, you know, like it's got like an energy to it that's really engrossing. Then I was thinking of movies that have kind of a withdrawal to them, a sort of sense of longing. So something like Portrait of a Lady on Fire or Personal Shopper. Miami Vice obviously is incredibly sweaty, incredibly hot. True Romance, things like that. And then I was thinking of categories of movies where there are, I love dialogue. I find dialogue incredibly sexy. So things like His Girl Friday, or even, you know, certain bits of Casino Royale, Brief
Yeah,
Encounter.
that's like the sexiest Bond, probably.
Yeah, you know, Before Sunrise, obviously, really any of the Before movies and things like that. Adam, what do you got for this?
So I have a few that kind of go along with like, the anticipation element of it that I think you were describing, like Out of Sight,
Yeah,
um, 2046, which is a Wong Kar-wai movie, is real hot, is kind of hot. Mulholland Drive,
Mulholland Drive was on
some,
my list too. Yeah.
The Last Seduction, kind of
Hmm.
any of those like fuck noirs that you so awesomely coined once.
Malice,
Which one? Oh,
Malice.
Malice. Yeah.
Buck Noir is not mine, by the way. Patrick, I appreciate that, but Patrick told me
That was
about
Patrick. Okay,
that.
all right. I gotta give credit to where credit's due.
Yeah, that's
There's a few like Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think is the sexiest Marvel movie.
because of the hair.
It's because the hair and like they're always sweaty and
Yeah,
like in suits and
yeah,
stuff. I think the obvious ones are like Species and Basic Instinct, where the point is
right.
to titillate you. Also with Michael Douglas, whenever he shows up on screen, it's like going to a Bulls game and like wanting to watch Michael Jordan play basketball. It's like this is what he's born to
Just
do.
kind of waiting for it to happen. Yeah, when
Yeah.
is he gonna fuck? Right.
And then of course, I dubbed this my UHF pick, which means unplanned holiday fuck, which is why the Santa Claus 2 is the hottest Disney movie ever made, because that whole sequence where they go to the faculty Christmas party and then they go back to her place and it's like this UHF moment,
Yeah.
and there's nothing better than a UHF moment.
I would also say things like Silver Linings Playbook. There's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
energy to that that's really
It's
hot.
the dancing
The,
foreplay
the
stuff.
dancing
Yeah.
foreplay of it, Point Break, you know, in that way as well. There's a lot of sort of sweaty anticipation in that movie. I even something like A Knight's Tale to me is incredibly
Yeah,
sexy.
yeah, I can see
Um,
that.
and then I also put Raiders of the Lost Ark on here because Harrison
Yeah,
Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark is the best looking anybody's ever looked in a movie, so it has to be on here.
yeah, this is true.
All right, our next question comes from, all right, Jackson. If you could watch the alternate version of a movie with famous sliding doors casting, like Matt Damon as Jake Sully, just to see how it would have turned out, what would it be? And then part two of his question, I think we can probably answer first. Do we think Harrison Ford would have been a better or worse Alan Grant than Sam Neill? Adam, do you want to take the Harrison Ford question first?
Sure. No, I think that he's too big of a star,
Yeah.
and then it becomes Harrison Ford and the dinosaurs instead of the point being the dinosaurs. And then also, I don't feel like Harrison Ford needed Jurassic Park at
Yeah.
all. So if he did it, he wouldn't be able to do The Fugitive, and then we wouldn't have gotten Sam Neill's '90s run
Sam Neill,
either.
very nice.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree with Adam on this one. I don't. The movie doesn't need him. He doesn't need the movie. Spielberg is smart in these instances where he casts good actors rather than stars.
yeah.
Um, the internet is full of these lists, and
Mhm.
you know, it is important to remember that, you know, every time a studio is developing a movie, they have a list, they have a wish list, they have people who are
Sure.
considered for the role, quote
Mhm.
unquote. You have people who are allegedly offered the role, turned down. So it was really, really difficult to kind of find things. Um, but I did pick out a couple, and then I had one for Adam to ask. Um, Joaquin Phoenix as Doctor Strange, I thought was kind of interesting because as much as I love Benedict Cumberbatch on Sherlock, his depiction of Doctor Strange is not particularly memorable,
Mhm.
and I think that character um, still needs a lot of definition, even with Multiverse of Madness giving him a little bit more texture. Um,
Mhm.
I think Joaquin would have at least done something with that to make it a little more, I don't know, something memorable. And then to transition over to you, Adam, the one I saw on all the lists was John Travolta as Forrest Gump, and I'm curious, as the world's biggest Travolta fan, what you would think of that one.
I'll have more to say about Travolta in about 30 seconds, but I do not think it would have worked
Okay.
with John Travolta as Forrest Gump. I think that Tom Hanks knows just the line
Mhm.
and can walk it, and I think Travolta would have fallen into the thing that Tropic Thunder made fun of. Speaking of which, so a few that I wrote down: Michael Keaton in Groundhog Day. I think Bill Murray's perfect in that movie,
Mhm.
but I think Keaton would have done a really good job too.
Very interesting.
Michelle Pfeiffer in The Silence of the Lambs. Um, Kevin Costner in Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, easily could pull that off.
Denzel Washington and Michael Clayton.
As Michael Clayton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that.
He was offered it, and then he didn't want to work with a first-time director, and he turned it. Will Smith and Django Unchained, I would love to see.
That's obviously the big one. Yeah.
I think that would have been such a subversive casting choice too, because his whole career up to that point was to be pleasing to everybody, and this is sort of more, yeah, it is what it is.
And
And then
Smith and the Matrix too. We've talked about that a lot.
I think Keanu's so much well suited for that.
Yeah,
So much more well suited for that.
it would have been interesting to see,
Yeah,
especially in
yeah,
that period of, was the millennium.
yeah.
Yeah.
A few others. Travolta in Apollo 13 as Jim Lovell. I think he could have done a good job as that. Travolta as Denzel's part in Flight. I think could have been really good. He's
Right.
good at playing very flawed men. So, Anne Hathaway in Knocked Up.
Yeah.
Winona Ryder in The Godfather Part 3 instead of
Right.
Sofia
Which was
Coppola.
basically, yeah, the thing.
Hugh Grant and Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets as Kenneth Branagh's part.
Yeah, he could do the cheesy Gilderoy
Yeah.
Lockhart thing. He could go over the top with it. Yep.
Jennifer Lawrence in The Hateful Eight as Daisy Domergue.
Okay.
Jennifer Connelly in Pretty Woman.
Now, do you think that movie does what it does if it's not Julia Roberts?
No. I think Julia Roberts is better. I'm just curious to
Yeah,
see
be curious.
Connelly in that. Yeah. And then lastly, this is the one for you. Don't think he would have been better, but Al Pacino as John McClane in Die Hard. Sea of Love era Pacino as John McClane would have been phenomenal.
Welcome to the party, pal.
All right, so next question. This is from Brian. The one horror flick you will always watch before The Shining. What movie am I putting on all the time ahead of The Shining? And I would say, like, just for horror, like Demon Knight, Scream 1 and 2, and Carnival of Souls. I watch those every October, or almost every October. And The Shining, I might watch every 3 or 4 years.
Our next question comes from our friend Miko. Miko, how are you, buddy? Miko's on a Canon kick. Favorite Canon films? Mine have remained the same, more or less. Mine are super boring. I like Cobra. I like Death Wish 3. I recently watched Breakin' and Breakin' 2. The Red Letter Media boys just did a video on Breakin' 2, and I had fun with that. But my Canon picks are generally pretty boring. I'm probably about 30% in terms of my Canon completion. I still have a ways to go. So Adam, what do you got?
I'm not as big of a Canon guy as most of the guys guys and gals on the site. So Patrick is like our resident expert for sure. He did a Screen Drafts episode with Elric. That would probably be your best bet if you're looking for recommendations. Just for me personally, I mean the one that I gravitate to are like a lot of the late era ones, like Masters of the Universe, Cyborg, Bloodsport. I like Life Force the most of the Toby Hooper ones. Death Wish 3, as Rob mentioned, and then New Year's Evil was like an early one, and that's a fun holiday slasher. Okay, next question comes from Michael. Rob, what is the best cheesesteak in Philadelphia? And Adam, what is the best pizza in Chicago?
I'll go first on this one. I do want to clarify: Philadelphians don't eat cheesesteaks every day. I probably haven't had a cheesesteak in 5 years, if I'm being honest. but I'm a Jim Steaks guy. Jim Steaks is on South Street. And I'm also if you're looking in the burbs where I'm at is Johnny Pisano's. Johnny Pisano makes a really good. I'm more of a chicken cutlet and broccoli rabe sandwich guy. If we're talking about preferred sandwiches,
Mhm.
um, I'm way more likely to go for a chicken cutlet than I am for a cheesesteak. Um, so that's my preference. Johnny Pisano's has a great one of them. But if I'm going cheesesteak, I'm not. Pat's and Geno's to me are both kind of just okay. There's lots and lots and lots of steak places in the city, but Jim's. I'm a Jim's guy. Adam.
For pizza, I think people have the misconception, just kind of like you, about people eating cheesesteaks all the time in Philly. Like, people in Chicago don't eat Chicago style deep dish pizza all the time. We would die. Like that was that I get deep dish pizza maybe once out of every five or so time, 8 times that I get pizza. So I would say I live in the suburbs too, around Chicago. So like I'm more getting local places, but if you're looking for like ones that are well known in the city, Lou Malnati's is probably the best. That's also in the suburbs. Uno is fine if you're downtown. And then Chicago Pizza and Oven Grinder is pretty cool. A friend of mine put me onto that place, and it's like having a pizza pot pie, and it's really good.
All right, our last question. Our last question comes from Ruben. Ruben asks, "What franchise, old or new, could Arnold Schwarzenegger reasonably be slotted into? What character would he play?"
I thought about this one a lot. I think that he's too big of a persona for a lot of franchises where he wouldn't add much.
Mhm.
So the two that I picked out were, I think he would, if he were like the villain in the Equalizer 2, where he was kind of like an old school merc that's friends with like, Denzel Washington's character from way back when and turned bad. I think that could be good. But the one that I'm most interested in, and I don't know if this would be better for television than it would be for a movie. I think he would make a pretty good Star Trek captain
Interesting.
because I think it could rely on his humor, and
Yeah.
I think that he kind of has like a bit of um, I don't know, he just has sort of like an outward or an outsized persona that doesn't feel normal.
Yeah, weird. The more I think about it, the more I'm into this because we've had
Yeah,
enough Star Trek happens now where it's kind of like the Batman point I made in my year end review, which is like, okay, you don't like Pattinson, fine, but we've had every flavor of Batman now. Like, you might as well try it, try something different. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, with Star Trek captains, it's kind of the same way. We've had a really great variety of Star Trek captains. Each of them bringing something different. I That would be really cool. I think that would actually be really cool. And
Yeah.
what era of Schwarzenegger would you go for? Would you go for like
I think now. I think
now?
I like, yeah, because I think that he's done a lot of like non-action dramatic stuff
Yeah.
in the VOD DTV era of late, and I think he's more ready for it now than he's ever been. Like, I think that if you had him kind of just be a Patrick Stewart type, where it's there's humor and then there's a lot of like philosophical dramatic stuff, but he's also can do some action, like that's probably the way to go.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for the questions. As always, we like doing these mailbags. They're fun. They give us some things to chew on. Adam, what are we doing next week?
So next week we're trying something new. We are doing an episode called Mean Genes. I signed up for an old archive newspaper website late last year as a gift to myself to read old movie reviews. So I've been going through a lot of old capsule Gene Siskel reviews, and when he is mean to a movie, like a 1 star, 1.5 star review, he's very entertaining and very funny and very blunt in ways that I don't think you can be anymore. So what we're gonna do is we've chosen a selection of 3 movies where Gene was mean, and myself, Rob, and special guest Patrick Bromley are going to revisit those movies, consider Gene Siskel's comments, say if we agree or do not agree, and discuss those movies at a little bit of length.
All
So we're
right.
looking forward to this one. Hope
Yes.
you enjoy it. So thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody who asked questions. And until next time.
Receipts are reserved.
Make it so. Put Schwarzenegger in Star Trek.
Do it,
Yeah.
cowards.
Yeah.